wouldn't. She said she did, wasn't her.
We're streaming live now.
All right, y'all, we have one viewer, so I'm gonna give him a couple of seconds. It's not about 60 seconds, and I'll start in about a minute and a half. All right, here we go. Islam. First, I want to give praises to the great God Allah and honor to our Prophet Noble Drew Ali, and welcome you to our second episode of More Perspective, where today we will be talking about money management. Our discussion will be basically a dialogue between my co-host and our guest speaker, and we are in the hopes of letting you know a little bit about money management and how you can improve your money management. So before we get started, just to start the dialogue, I would like to read something from our Moor's literature. And it says, in the connection with our religious aims and beliefs, we must promote economic security. The preaching of economic security among us is by no means as widespread and intensive as the circumstances demand. No other one thing is more needed amongst us at this time than greater economic power. So I want to introduce you to my co-host, Sister A. Johnson Bay.
Islam. So I am Sister A. Johnson Bay. I'm from Temple number 55 in Hope, Indiana. And money management is important to me because, like the prophet said, it takes finance to uplift a nation. So if you are managing your money correctly, it can give you freedom within your household and freedom within your nation. And now I will introduce to you Sister Reverend Bay, and we will be having a great discussion with her. Sister.
Islam. So I am Sister A. Ravino Bay. Some may know me as Sister A. Revels Bay. But I am from Temple number 21 in Brooklyn, New York, but I'm actually based in the Bay Area in Oakland, California, and very honored to be here tonight. And this topic to me is really important because, we have it on our questionnaire with the prophet is up, he's lifting a sister up of humanity. And we know that it's important that when you are raising up the family, when you're raising up yourself, you are raising up the nation. And economic security is important. It's important that people are fed and taken care of. And so as much as it is something personal to me, I think that it's important for everyone to know, and we share this information. So let's share a little bit about my background. So I actually started off working for Citibank, and I worked running branches. So I helped people come in and help them figure out what financial tools that were right for them, whether it was investing, it was banking, it was mortgages, it was loans. And I would help people that would come in at various places of experience and education. And then I also, once I worked there for a bunch, I ran branches, I ran areas to help and train the bank employees to be able to do what they need to do to serve the community. And then I moved to work for Trulia. And many people know Zillow, which is a real estate website, where if you're looking to buy a home, you typically go to Zillow to either see what your house is worth, if you want to see if you're thinking about a home. And Trulia is a partner of them. And I worked there to help build their organization, to work with their real estate agents. I ran the San Francisco sales office, and then I helped build our Denver office and ran the operations team. I left there, and then I'm still in tech, and I worked at NerdWallet. And NerdWallet is a consumer financial platform, which helps to create transparency. So any financial decision that you're trying to make, they will be there it's a good resource for checklists. And that's part of the reason why I was drawn to it, because it wasn't just about homes or a bank, but it was about everything. And I ran their sales and partnerships team. So I got to meet lots of teams and lots of businesses that were looking to be a part of that network. And then most recently I was at Open Door. Again, it's a real estate company that is now changing the way real estate is changed. And so if you don't know about what's iBuyer, you should absolutely learn about it, where essentially you don't go to an agent anymore. You don't have to, but you can maybe go online to buy a house. And I ran their consumer operations team. So thinking about how do we treat customers when they walk in, and how do we have a consistent experience? And most recently this year, I've actually decided to be an entrepreneur and consult. They're tech companies that look for advice of how do I build a business? How do I drive revenue? How do I help customers? And that's what I'm here to help solve and be a resource for them. And I'm happy to be here to talk about the very, very importance of the prophet said, I'm going to go back and forth, as you all know, but on chapter 48, the end of time, the fulfilling of the prophecies, he says, well, we, the Moorish Americans, are returning to Islam, which was founded by our forefathers for our earthly and divine salvation. So I'm glad we're talking about what does it take for us to be able to thrive, not just be here, but to thrive as human beings and support one another. And so I have 3 things I want to talk about. I think finance is a really big topic. I think it's really hard. And so my prayer, the thought and my intention for this conversation is that everybody that's listening or sees this in the future, you just do one thing. You don't have to do, we're going to talk about a lot of ideas, a lot of suggestions. I like to relate it to dieting. If anybody knows what food, we were talking about food last week. You might listen to that wonderful talk and say, I'm gonna be a vegetarian tomorrow. And then all of a sudden you drove by, McDonald's was like, well, maybe not tomorrow. So it's about the one step. And it's about creating the habit, because the prophet talks about, the man has principles of action. So you have to have principles that you will stick to as action in order to keep you aligned. And so I'm gonna talk about it in 3 phrases, but my goal is everybody to walk away with their one thing. And I hope to hear about that in the chat. What's the one thing you will do? So the first topic is something super simple we all know. And the prophet says, you must know thyself. And knowing thyself means a lot. It means you need to ask yourself, which I'm gonna ask the co-host today, what do we know about ourselves? Are we good financially? Are you a saver? When the mail comes in and you see the bill, what do you do? I know people like Starbucks, right? Do you go to Starbucks all the time? Do you need that new outfit? So it's really, really, really important that we all know ourselves. And it's not changing it, but it's acknowledging and understanding the behavior and habits and patterns we have today. Because by understanding that, then you actually have the key to be able to make changes. So I know Sister A. Johnson, we were talking about this before, like, how do you think about that topic, and what are some thoughts you can share?
So when it comes to money management and knowing thyself, in general, I always challenge people when they say, oh, I want to be rich, or I want to have this great job, or I want to have this, or I want to have that. I really challenge people to say, what is it that you truly want? Because typically it's peace, it's freedom. The prophet brought us love, truth, peace, freedom, and justice. So when we start talking about peace and freedom in your life, managing your money, if it's not managed correctly, it causes a lot of stress. So for me, money management has always been very important in my life, regardless of my age. And I always like to make sure my bills are covered. When I was an engineer, well, I'm still an engineer, but my first engineering job, this guy at the plant gave me advice. He said, never rent a place that's more than 1 week of pay. And I was like, hey, that makes sense. If it only takes 1 week to pay your rent, that makes sense to me. So that's why I think a little differently about money, because I don't necessarily just sit here and say, let me try to make the most money in the world. It's just what can I do to have peace in my life and have freedom to do what I want within means, within moderation, right? So that's where I challenge people to really say, before we start setting up your financial goals and saying, hey, I need to save this much or that much, let's talk about who you are and what you really want. The prophets say, know thyself. So really sit down, bring your mind at peace, and figure out, are you going after goals because society told you to, or are you going after the goals that are in your heart that will help you and your family prosper? That's the word.
That's right. That's right. Yeah, I think it's important to think about that question, because even if, sometimes it's hard to look at ourselves and see what we do. I mean, I even know, particularly when I was young, I got out of college and you're like, oh my goodness, I'm going to do this. You have all these big ideas and ambitions of what you think you're going to do. Sometimes it's just for the moment. I love the Starbucks. I know many people love to buy that $4, that $5 cup of coffee. She said, Chantanelle, is that true? You're on mute.
For me, one thing, I'm an impulsive buyer. There's certain things that I act like I can't live without, that I'm learning what's important and what's not important. So there was one time that I would have a Starbucks every day, which we know is $4 a day. There were times when I said, I need a $200 week budget just to buy clothes. And then I really had to sit back and be like, okay, you're getting a little older. What are your goals going to be? Like, what is your life really going to look like? Because those clothes are only going to last so long. Like, what are you going to pass down to your children, or pass down? And what is your legacy going to be? So once I started realizing that and figuring out what was important to me, I was like, okay, you need to start changing some behaviors to better condition for yourself. I still go to Starbucks, but I started buying store. I make my own coffee here now.
Well, that is wonderful. I mean, I'm not against Starbucks. It's but their children got their wealth and legacy taken care of. Let's just be clear, because we're contributing to that. But I think, the treat is important. There's something special about it. But having it the every other day, the balance of it, by just recognizing that, hey, maybe I don't. And so one thing sometimes I'll say is, you can either, look at a bank statement and look back to see, okay, what did I spend my money on, or look at a credit card receipt or whatever. Or the easy one too is you can look at somebody else, right? And you can look to see, oh, you can see the pattern sometimes clearer than you could in yourself. And then you can start to see, wait a minute, do I do that? Just to give yourself some relativity, not to mock or to think negatively of them, but just to come back to check yourself, because it's very easy sometimes as human beings for people to see things more clearly when it's not you, so you can reflect back. But I think that the first thing is you got to know thyself. And, I'm going to keep going to food because that one's easy for me. It's like, I know when I go and I visit other temples where I travel, I love to try the desserts and the sweets. And I can name people that I've always been around who've made wonderful desserts. And it's like, okay, but I don't need that all the time. It's okay to have the treat, but you don't need it all the time, because it isn't really good for you and it's what you really need. And does it control you, or do you control it? Sometimes you gotta draw a circle around our passions and hold it there versus it controlling us.
So what are the first steps that you took, Sister Avanoff Bay? I know you have a lot of experience in this and you probably came up with some great to-dos, but what are your first steps when you started really focusing on money management?
Yeah. First off, I want to say it's not something that you solve overnight. So you always, as you grow and change. So today, I still need to focus on that and keep an eye on it. But I think the first thing I did, which was because of where I worked in banking, I realized how much wealth or how much money people were saying, doing, and using, and how we don't talk about money usually in our families. We don't talk about it in the community. We don't talk about tips and tricks. It's almost like a secret. Like if you didn't know that, you didn't get ahead. And so I think the first thing to do is there's lots of resources. You can Google, you can do lots of things, but personally, it's like you can just look around and say, okay, what am I doing and what do I need? And you can start by, look at your expenses, looking to see, okay, where am I really spending my money? And again, this is really, if you could do it from a place of no judgment, it's actually even better. I'm not going to get mad at myself. I just want to know where I'm at.
Mhm.
And that's when you're able to uncover to say, I eat out a lot. Do I need to eat out a lot? Right? Or, why am I going to this grocery store? I noticed that when I go to this grocery store, my average bill is $150 and I go to this one is $75. Just being aware allows you to be conscious of what you're actually doing. And sometimes when we are acting unconscious, we don't even realize what's happening.
Correct.
And there's enough marketing, there's enough commercials, there's a lot of stuff out there. My son just told me, Mom, did you hear about honey? Because doing something on YouTube, they do coupons. And I'm like, marketing is amazing because it will tell you what you need to do, but that's it telling you, not you telling it what you need. So just being consciously aware, I think, is the first part for then you to be able to say, oh, wait, let me question some of that. And you start off gradually just by being aware. So I'm gonna go to topic 2, because I think that's important to talk about. Once you kind of have taken the time to sit down and think about what it is and what you're doing, I say you have to start to think about holding the thought. We all know thought is the cause. And so you wanna hold a thought of what you want or what you need to achieve. So if you know or you believe that you're not good with finances, but you're saying it and thinking it, you typically will do it. Again, if I say I have a weakness for, I'm thinking Brother Seymour right now in DC. If I have a weakness for his desserts, I know it's like I can walk in there and just eat as much as I want because he has it there. I don't have to worry about it because I just kind of fallen into and accept it. And so making sure that you have the thought of what you actually want to do is more powerful than anything. And being able to claim it and say, I have control over this, or I'm moving into wealth, or I'm moving into owning and being a part of creating what I want. That alone is what you need to do. And so, are you good with finances? How are you doing that? Right? So if I'm saying I'm going to be good with my finances, now you have to come through with your action and your needs. If it's managing your debt, do you have a plan for it? What's the thought? What is your thinking of this and how are you planning on doing it? And to, the instant gratification, if you're aware of it, it's like, okay, the thought is, I don't want to be beholden to Starbucks every week. I want to be able to say, I might want my coffee, but it doesn't have to come from there. And I know that me giving him $20 a week is giving him and not me. So instead of me giving him 20, maybe I'll give him 4 and I'll have more for me and for what I want to do. So the thought is super, super important, sister, to your question earlier.
I like to think about it as whose dreams am I building? To your point, am I going to take that $20 and help them manifest and build their dreams? Or am I going to take that $20 or maybe I'll splurge a little bit and I'll take $10 to help build a dream, but I should give at least half as much to building my own dreams. So even just understanding and holding that thought on this is my dream, and making sure I'm doing something to build my dream every day as well.
Yeah, I think the most important thing that I've learned and I'm learning is the way that you think of money. So I know in my experience, for me, my colleagues, my friends, from us graduating college, going to get a master's, everything is pretty much built on if I do this, if I do that, I will make this certain type of money. And it kind of like embeds this thought of you of chasing money and you're constantly running after it and constantly trying to achieve it. But in the midst of that, you're really just turning yourself into a slave to achieve some type of currency or abundance of wealth in your life. And then you realize that you're missing out on other aspects of your life that money just can't fulfill. Happiness. And even when you're not happy, money really doesn't mean that much to you. And it really doesn't hold any value because you're chasing it and then you're spending it. Versus when you know what you want, you do a self-examination of yourself, you understand what is going to make me happy, whether it's fulfilling needs for my family, or it's fulfilling needs for myself to make sure that I'm financially stable, that I can think stably and create better conditions. And I just think the way that we think about money, we're constantly chasing it and not looking at it as a resource to build our lives, but we're looking at it as a resource of, if I don't have money, then I won't live. Mm-hmm. And I really have to take a step back and look at money as something that you can have, that you can place in different areas in your life to achieve happiness, not wealth.
Mm-hmm. It's true. Based on that thought alone, that is exactly why my first house purchase was a duplex. I wanted a raise, and I thought I went on vacation. I found out 30 engineers had got fired. I was like, oh man, am I one of them? They wouldn't have told me over text message. I wasn't one, but it gave me the realization. I was living in an apartment at the time. By buying a duplex, living in one side and renting out the other, I gave myself an automatic raise. I went from paying rent every month to having my mortgage paid and extra money in my pocket. So that was instantly like a $12,000, $13,000 raise per year, and more peace, more control in my life. But it was based exactly off of what you were saying, Sister Johnson. I just started thinking that way differently about money. Do I have to get more money to be happy? Or can I actually change some life situations to be happy?
You know, there's a verse in the Quran I'm looking for. It's like, it's not in the obtaining of it, it's the utilization of it. And I know I'm paraphrasing it. Someone could throw it in the chat, you know, but right. I do think about that. And if you, I have children, so I see that all the time. It's like, mommy, I really need this toy. And it's like, you got 10 toys in the room and you're not even playing with it. Why do you need the 11th toy? Mm-hmm. And I'm like, it's because, part of it is the inconstancy. I think also part of it is the world at which we live in. So having the teachings and being, Prophet said, if I can get you to think, you could save yourself. Just being able to think. The fact that you said, Sister Johnson, that you thought about it. Mm-hmm. And then the thought came, you thought about it, and then you manifested. Mm-hmm. Right?
Yeah, just in thinking it, when my brother mentioned real estate as a retirement, it made me open to the idea because I thought about my situation and was open to the universe, to Allah, for a solution.
That's right.
It came from my older brother talking about buying houses as a means of retirement.
Yeah.
And I think I think it's that, well, for me, it's that instant gratification and that impulsiveness that when you don't think and you go, and I always go into Target and I'm like, I'm getting one thing, I'm getting shampoo. And then I end up walking out of there with like at least 20 things. So it's like that instant gratification of you thinking that you're buying these things and that they're going to satisfy you in some type of way. And then you go home and you're like, oh, I'm so happy I got this new dress. I just tried this new hair product. It makes my hair look beautiful, so on and so forth. But in a minute, you're back to thinking, oh, I had the worst day ever. You have nothing to look forward to because you're so into, then you're trying to find something else to instantly gratify yourself. Whereas what you could do is really, like Sister Ajon today said, is just take a moment, examine yourself, think of the goals that you want, and make strategic life decisions to make your life evenly harmonious, instead of looking for that instant gratification when you try to make a purchase or spend money. And I think that's the key to money management that allows you to find happiness using those type of resources.
Absolutely. I mean, first chapter, inconstancy. Nature urgeth thee to inconstancy, O man. Therefore, guard thyself at all times against it. So we know it, right? That is, it is inconstant for us to fight. And my belief is, particularly in business, I believe companies know it. That is reason why they spend tons of money. There's a reason why at Target you can't go in and buy just one thing. There's a reason why there's a dollar spot there. It's not to make your life easy, right? It's about when every customer walks out, that total is a certain number that they need to hit for profit and revenue. And so if you are at least aware of it, I'm not saying you don't go there, but you just know why it's there, why it's placed there, why they have, in the supermarket, the perimeters of the fresh foods that you need to get to, and there's all the other stuff that's marked up in price in between. Why when you go to your pharmacy to get your medicine, it really don't take an hour or 30 minutes to be ready. It's there so you can stay in the store and buy something for those 30 minutes and then get your medicine, and hopefully you're buying more. And so there's tons of psychology, and there's tons of people that's their job, is to figure out how to get your attention, how to get your dollars. And so you have to be aware when you're making those financial decisions, I think, of just being aware that it is there. Even if you might get in, you might lose a battle one moment in Target, you might lose that, and that's okay. But did you know that you lost the battle?
Mm-hmm.
And if you didn't, well, then that's part of the challenge too, is you need to know and be aware and have that thought of like, okay, this is what I need, this is what I'm going to do, and this is important to me. Because when you have a reason of why that thought is there, why you have that plan, when it comes from love and it's about you taking care of you, it's a whole different walk, a whole different path. And so we're going to talk about some tools that I think would goes in the next topic, but I think it's helpful to understand that money management is not about just putting a dollar in a bucket every week. It's a
Mindset, yeah.
it's a mindset. Mm-hmm.
It's really about changing the way that you think. And just for the audience, like, I know you guys will probably have plenty of questions that you want to ask, so feel open. The chat line is open for that. We're accepting questions that we want to ask, want to answer towards the end of the show. So anything you have, ask us. Sister Amira is going to go through some to-dos based on certain type of problems that people may have. Whether you don't have a financial plan, what does that look like? If you're looking for a goal, what does that look like? Whether it's buying a house or just becoming more financially stable, she'll go through some steps. But please submit your questions, and we want to make sure that we're able to get to them.
That's right. So one of the things I try to do, and I'm thinking, I'm looking at establish inconstancy in chapter 41, page 51. Establish into thyself principles of action. What is my principle of action? What are the things that I'm planning on doing? I think it's not just in money, it's in health. It's and I actually think that this time that we have here in COVID is a blessing, because you are kind of on punishment. It's like you've been sent to your house to sit down and look at your four walls and figure out, what do you want to do? Who do you want to be? You realize you might have too much shampoo that you bought at Target. Now you can be self-sufficient, go in. I mean, I had to look and see, I'm like, I don't need to buy any more stuff, right? So this is a wonderful time to do it. So I'm gonna talk about a couple things. The first is, what if someone says, thank you, brother. Alan Neal said, it's not the possession, but in knowing how to use it. Thank you for that. He chatted it for us. If you don't have a plan, the first is to get a plan, right? And with a person that doesn't have a plan, doesn't have an aim or a direction of which way they're going, they're being more reactive to it. And so that's super easy, right? And the plan doesn't even have to be big. Again, this is one step. If you're trying to create income, this is actually a really great time now where people are selling. So everybody probably here, most people probably have Facebook. You go on Facebook Marketplace. I had a friend who just sold a desk and a chair like this in like 24 hours. People are also assessing their homes. So if you have clothes or whatever that you don't need, this is about, what do I currently have? Do I really need it? Is it serving its purpose for me now? If it's not, let it go. But you can also bring in some income for yourself that way, just by doing that. Tracking your finances is another easy way. There's lots of tools out there that you can go online, that you can, Digit is another app. You can go in there, you can set up so that it can look at all your accounts, and it'll tell you, you're spending a lot of money on groceries, you're spending a lot of money on clothes, just so that you get an idea. Again, you should do it at a place of no judgment. but you should at least start to see, be aware, so you know what you want to do. Some people, may want to invest, and investing doesn't mean you need to have now. Actually, investing does not mean that you need to have even $1,000. You can even go as low as $100 or $200. Okay, that could be an outfit, a pair of shoes, or that's just a month of no going to Starbucks. You can put that $100 away, and there's a one app. I'm just speaking of those that I know, and there's others. I'll tell you some other places to go to. But Robinhood is another like tech solution that I know of that people will use. And the whole goal of a company is to make sure that you take that anyone that wants to invest can invest. Because typically what in the past has been is that you have to be of certain wealth to be able to invest, which means that if you don't have the wealth to put in money, you don't earn the rewards of it. And so I like to remind people that, let's say the casinos, some people will like to do that. You put a penny slot or you got the $100 table. There's an opportunity that you can actually gain more. And I think that, in my personal humble opinion, that I think casinos are similar, just like the stock market, except people get a lot richer. So if you have a iPhone and you have an Apple phone, or you have a T-Mobile phone, or you got a Samsung phone, all of those companies are on the stock market. And if you are investing in them, meaning you are taking part of ownership, when the company goes well, you get that increase. When the company goes down, you may not. But the goal is you'll find someone to say it's for the long term. And it's a strategy that I remember that really opened my eyes when I was in banking, how blessed some people were to know that. And most people think I have to have a checking account and maybe a savings account. And savings accounts is another way of form, but you really don't get a whole lot of interest for that. Meaning you deposit $100 and they give you 0.1%. You get a penny in a month. Versus you can put that $100 and let's say you're a Groupon stock and you might get $30 in 2 days, depending on the way the stock market goes. And so I think it's important that people, again, it's about knowing and learning so you can find what works for you. Another, if you don't have a plan, credit cards. They are, they killing me. They killed me in the past. I see how it can hurt so many people. There's ways to leverage it, but the whole goal of it is being in debt to someone else so that they can take the interest off of you and they're making money off of you. And so if you have a credit card, which most Americans have, I think it's like 4 to 5 credit cards. What we should be going for is closer to 2 if you're going to have a credit card is the recommendation usually. Go ahead.
Is there a reason why you should only have 2? Kind of because of being able to manage it, or?
Well, the philosophy is that if you have to, first of all, building credit is an ability for you to gain wealth. Meaning, all credit really means, in a very fundamental answer, is that you can give me something and I can pay you back. Right? That's really what the word credit means. With credit cards, though, and it's important, is when you show and demonstrate that if you let me borrow and I can get back, then you have the ability to get more. And so when I was in bank, I used to feel really bad for a lot of foreign exchange students because they would have cash, but because they didn't have credit, they couldn't get access to things. They couldn't get apartments sometimes, they couldn't buy a car, or they would get charged a ton of interest. And then I feel bad for some of our communities that get ravished by payday loans. It's a different topic for me that gets me upset, because essentially what they're doing is they're saying they're taking your money and charging a really, really high interest and making tons of money off of you that no one should go through and experience. And so when you responsibly have a credit card and you demonstrate that behavior, it enables you to get more and more, including buying a home, including other purchases you may want to do in the future. So that's kind of important to be aware of. But don't be twisted that when you're late, there are fees. When you don't pay on time and you don't get that balance down, then that's where they make their money. Because again, they're trying to make money off of you. And that's another big topic. And then the other place, again, if you don't, it could be selling money, making money, investing, credit cards. I was going to say about credit cards is that a lot of people, one of my learnings at NerdWallet was that most of the credit cards that probably come to your house are usually no good. They're usually there to make money on you. this is why I will recommend a company I worked at, nerdwallet.com, and they have a comparison sheet. And the CEO essentially got tired of not understanding why all these credit card companies were coming to him. And his sister said, "Can you tell me which one's the right one?" And he literally did a spreadsheet that said, "This one is this percentage and this is the fee. This one is this percentage and this is the fee." But then he was like, "Wait, this one, if you do this one, they'll give you every dollar you spend, you get points back for travel. Or this one, you get cash back." And so that was really interesting, because why would I borrow money and play that game with somebody and get nothing back when I can do it with travel rewards? And so I can share, we had our honeymoon for free, our flight for free, because we were very focused on like, okay, we're going to use this card because this card gives you this perk. And again, these are things that no one's going to tell you about. People don't usually yell about it. Usually it's very targeted. It'll go to certain zip codes. And if you're not in that zip code, you don't get that mail or that offer. And so this is information I think people need to know, because it doesn't make sense why people don't know this. So I'm gonna pause there on the no plan, get a plan. And those are some of the other pieces that I was talking about.
Well, I want to jump into some of the questions because our chat is getting kind of full. Are you open to that?
Go for it.
Yeah, may I add one more thing about the credit card real quick, just so people know. American Express is a credit card I like to recommend to people who don't want a credit card, because you have to pay it off every month and you're building points. So there is no, oh, I'll just pay the minimum payment and pay the rest next month. So it's a way to build credit without that temptation of just building up a bunch of debt.
Okay, so I'm gonna start with our first question from the chat.
Mm-hmm.
Here we go, and it's from Sister T. Potter Bay, and she said, "When is the best time to have a financial advisor, or who would need a financial advisor?"
Great question. So I believe that everybody should find someone, no matter what your situation is, and get a financial advisor. I'll tell you why, but I'm gonna tell you, so the reason why I think you should is because a good financial advisor should be able to look at your debt, your assets, and they should help you build a plan and say, okay, where do you want to go? Sister A. Johnson Bay, what do you want to do? And then they say, okay, you have your banking accounts, your investing accounts, your mortgages, your insurance. When you want to retire, and they can then have access to other funds and investments that you won't even see or hear about, because it only goes through them, that you will be able to get access to. I say that because most people aren't offered financial advisors unless they hit a certain wealth. So I'll talk about it in a bank. They won't even bother you unless they believe that you have a certain amount of money. It's not that you don't need it. It's just that that's where they feel like it's worth their time. And so think about it. They're like, why would if you give me somebody that's making $20,000 a year, but you got somebody that's making $100,000 a year, I'd rather spend my time with them because they have, money, or maybe I can do more things with them. Some of them are also commissioned. So meaning that for the transactions that they do, they get paid a fee. And so I always recommend, if you can find an independent financial advisor where you can pay a flat fee. And so he's not motivated to sell you a bunch of things. He's motivated a flat fee to give you services, but he has access to lots of tools and support. Then that is what you should get. And I think I think a lot of other communities know about this, and I'm glad to be able to on the record say our community needs to know about this, because it's not something that no one's coming to us for that. But as much money as that we have out there that's going out to everybody else, we should be figuring out a plan to save ours and grow, and that's a part of wealth building.
Do you have any references that you could provide is there any such thing as free financial advisors, or do financial advisors come at a cost? I know a lot of people, when you think of a financial advisor, the first thing that comes to mind is, oh, I can't afford that. That's another expense. I already don't have any money.
Yeah. There are free financial tools and websites that people can go to, and I can send that later. I think that at a certain point, I think of it as like, I want all my teeth to be in my mouth, And so at some point, I'm probably need to go to the dentist just to make sure that they are going to be with me as I age. And so I can do and read and do as much as I want, but what I really need is an expert to come in and do that. And so I think of it as, if we have pride in the way our cars look and they're cleaned, um, if we have pride in the way we look and we adorn ourselves, we should have pride in being able to think about how do we ensure that we have the comfort of that we need to live here in our earthly place, but also to help each other out as a nation.
Okay. I just received another question for a financial advisor. Is how do you find, and this is from Sister D. Jones Bay, how do you find or identify a good and trustworthy financial advisor that is working for your benefit?
Mm. I think that there's definitely lots of questions you can ask. And I think actually that's a great point. I don't think you should look on the book and pick the first one. I think you should interview them. My rule is always interview 3. It's great if you can get referrals, but a financial advisor is someone kind of like, I think of it as like a doctor. Forget the dentist, because dentist is a little different. Your primary doctor who's got to look at you when you are underneath and you got to bare your soul and tell them all the warts, whatever you might got going on or whatever's going on. Like, you want to be able to have that conversation with someone honestly. And so I think you need to ask them some basic questions of like, how long have they been doing it? Because experience does help. You want to ask them, what kind of customers do they serve or that they usually work with? That means a difference. If they say, look, I work with a lot of people that are thinking about long-term care planning, which means like, how do I ensure that post-retirement that I have a plan and I can live? That's important to know, because if that's important to you, you want to know that they're asking questions about you. So they should be interviewing you just as much as you're interviewing them. And if you feel like they are being open and honest, and you love the way that they are speaking to you, and you use your intuition here to gain the energy you're feeling from them, it's a great way to be able to do it. But I can also send a list of questions as well we can have for later that are some standard questions that a lot of people will ask, but I think really it's about interviewing people.
Great. Our next question is, and this is from Brother L. Allen Eel. How do we start a good savings plan, and what are the benefit of investing, and how do you get started in investing? Like, what would be the first steps on getting a good savings? And then once you get a good savings, what would be the next steps on investing that savings?
Mm-hmm. So I think it's funny, he broke it from savings to investing. I actually don't think today you need to separate savings from investing. There are people that take their savings and use it for investing. You can also save money and put it to the side. So I do believe that you should have some liquid assets in case of an emergency. So for example, we are in a very point of time now where people may lose jobs or there's a loss of income, and you need to be able to ensure that you are okay today. So I do believe you should have some savings that last you. They usually say 3 months. I actually say maybe 6 months is a better time frame that you have to be able to replace your income now. And again, you should also be thinking that if you are planning for that, you're not going to, that's when Starbucks, I would actually have to say, brother, no Starbucks, you got to chill right now. Get yourself some coffee, get your coffee maker and brew it, whatever. But 6 months savings. And then you can also separately start to say, okay, when do I want this money to make money for me? Because that's what investing really is. That is why people put money in the stock market. That is why they'll say, okay, I believe that Amazon, who's doing very well right now, I don't have stock tips, I can't give stock tips, but I think we all can see now that Amazon is doing really well, grocery stores are doing really well. And the person that bought stock in those companies before this hit is making money now. That's just so whatever this, let's say the stock was worth $10, the stock might be worth now $100. And they can make a decision at that point. Their advisor will probably be calling them to say, hey, what do you want to do? You want to keep it? Do you want to reinvest? Because now you just made $90 just because this company went very well. So investing, I think you can start anytime. Like I said, Robinhood, I know, starts at very small increments, so you can just get interested in it if you want. It's actually really targeted to millennials with college, because they know that they want to break the barrier that you have to be, 30 years old and with a ton of money. They're trying to decentralize it. So I do think that's a place that you want to take a look at.
Sister A. Johnson Bay, I hope I don't get you off guard, but I think that we've talked in the past about investment opportunities or just opportunities of how to invest your money, not saying in stocks, but just certain avenues that you can invest your money to get some type of beneficial outcome. Can you talk about that? You're on mute.
Hi, Islam. So I had mentioned one earlier, and that is when I decided to purchase a home. Now, I could have went and purchased a single family home, but I decided to purchase a multifamily home, and I found a nice duplex. And that was my retirement investment. I took money out of my 401k and I used it to be able to purchase this home. Some people advise me against that, but I figured it this way. This is for retirement and this is for retirement. I understand 401k, the principle is when I get older, the tax will be less and I will be able to keep more of that money. When I entered the work world, I was working with old people at Chrysler that still were working because of what had happened with their pensions. So that showed me early on in my career that you can't always trust what they tell you is going to happen in 30 years. I'm not saying don't do it. Like maybe you diversify a little bit though, right? So therefore, that's what I talk about a lot is one way to help yourself with a little bit of a retirement is if you have one or two duplexes, if you're up to doing real estate, because you can even use property management to manage it. If you're say, oh, I don't know how to do that. They take 10% or less usually to do that. So that is an avenue where you can use to invest. There's also businesses, but we'll get into that in our next episode, so I won't get into that too much. But I would definitely say multifamily housing is one you should definitely look at. If you're renting today and you're thinking, well, I don't know where I'm going to be at, I'm not sure if I could buy a house, you can have a rental anywhere.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that to me is like one of the goals that I know a lot of people have, which is I want to stop renting, because the whole premise of renting is you are making someone really wealthy. Let's start there, right? So if Anne has a duplex and she's renting the other side, she just said, right, like that's her way of making income. And so when you're renting, you actually don't own it. It's a hotel, right? When you leave, you leave and you giving them all the money. But there are opportunities creatively that people will think about. I want to buy a home that you don't necessarily doesn't have to look the way society tells you can be done. It can be different ways. And I know that like duplexes are a great way for some people where they're like, okay, I can have this and be on one side, and I don't want to steal your thunder, sister, but use that as a way to be able to pay yourself back. And I think that is, again, if you know, only way you know about it is if someone told you, usually. And so this is the beauty of having these conversations and putting it out there so that people start to think. That really is it. It's just starting to think about maybe solving the problem in a different way. And so when you can try to think about solving it a different way, Allah will if you still small voice, Allah will say, oh, that was interesting. Wait,
Right.
You started like, oh, I'm supposed to go that way. Okay. Maybe I need to think about it this way. And so one other I was going to make sure I got to tell today. Most people have cars. If you have not called your insurance company and asked for a lower rate in like 2 years, you need to do that today. Like that's the one thing you can do for me today. If that's your one thing. Insurance is another business, right? But the older you get, and if you are being a good driver, you might be more available to discounts. And so you can actually make money or save money from giving it to someone else by doing it. But everyone knows most people don't do that. The same way as you can just go to another place that's offering you a better rate. And so usually in your 20s, that's when the rates are the highest. And people don't usually change it until they're about their 40s, maybe 50s, when they're adding a child. But they've been paying the rate for when they were in their 20s. And so that's like another, like just call and say like, hey, I want to know, am I available? Can you re-look at my premium and see what you can do? And you'll be amazed at some times where I've had people tell me, wow, I saved $200. Like I don't have to, $200 is going to come back, or it went to half. I've even heard of people that have just never called because you didn't know that you could even do that. And so reviewing your, same thing you do with your cell phone bill. It's a fight for that. There's a website that I will sometimes look at or I follow on Simple Dollar. And essentially somebody giving tips and hacks of like things that you need to know of, or things of ideas that promos that somebody came out that said, hey, check this out. And the fact that, again, you got to be in it to know what the good thing is important.
Mhm.
Libraries, another easy place. You should be renting free movies right now and free ebooks and audiobooks online they have a digital apps now. So you don't have to give Audible and you don't have to give Netflix maybe all your money if you don't have to.
Yeah, that's true. And Sister Johnson, the other thing I talked to you guys about before, you particularly, was I also invest in life insurance, but typically it's not even called life insurance anymore. It's just insurance. And if something happens to you, yes, your loved ones get that money. But after a certain amount of years, when nothing does happen to you, that is your money. So life insurance, when you go talk to your financial advisor, because I'm not one, but that's some of the things they can talk to you about, is just making sure you're covered in that way. And that is, in my opinion, I use that as an investment. So I pay a little more.
Mhm.
Okay, so I want to provide 2 more questions from our chat. We definitely didn't have time to get to all of our questions. So to my audience, I'm sorry, we will go back to our comments and respond to you. But I think these last 2 questions are pretty important. The first one is, do you feel or believe visually seeing your goals, plans written down helps you with your mindset by staying aware daily, whether it's through a journal or a calendar? Is that something that you would suggest to someone?
Yes, yes, and yes. Yeah, I think my birthday is in September, and that's my year of reset and revision. And so I always have a time to journal or write my thoughts and thank Allah for everything that I have. I used to do like, I used to be so focused on the future, I forgot to like thank. So first thank what you got, because sometimes I think also journaling and visualizing is recognizing what you have. And maybe you don't know, maybe you don't need more, right? Talk to your point of chasing more of that dollar. You may not, you may actually be okay. It's just about reutilizing the way that you've been gifted already. But I believe you get a piece of paper, you get a sheet, you get magazine clips, whatever that works for you. Because if you're holding the thought, and we know we are in constant, you know that you're gonna look over there and you're gonna look over here. And so I actually just moved my my vision plan to like the side of my wall where I wake up. So when I wake up, I see my things that I'm thinking about to keep me focused. And then that helps when you're setting the day after, you may pray, or for me, like I walk and meditate, because that you got to keep that thought in there. And if you don't, you got to put that thought and intention, and there's power in the thought. Keep it in. Otherwise, it's just, the world will throw so many messages at you, you'll miss it. You'll forget it.
Yeah. All right. Our last question is, and this is from, that question before was from Carissa Daniels. And our next question is from Candace Burgess. And she said, there are many adults in our communities who do not know about managing finances. And at times, their children grow up lacking financial knowledge. What financial information would you give to our youth?
I'll just share what I do. So I have 2 children, and they, we don't really give money for chores. I don't believe in that. Like, you got to work to be here. Like, I don't do that. But sometimes they'll get different things, or I'll give them tasks and give them a couple of dollars to do that. They can't just get it and like spend it, right? Like you got to talk to them and say, okay, what are you going to do with this? And so we create 3 envelopes. One is a spend envelope. What is it? One is a save, and one is a donate envelope. And so I usually have to give it in multiples of 3s. Or something, or if I give them $5, I'll tell them, okay, where are you going to put your money? Because it all can't go into spend, because I do believe they should enjoy some of the fruits of whatever they did, but they have to be able to think about all 3, with the goal of teaching them that it's important to save, because you don't know when the opportunity is going to come where you might need it for something other or something else. You should do something for yourself today. I think that's good to give yourself, to treat yourself. But I also think it's important to donate and to give back to the greater good of this world, because it is not just about you getting that toy that moment or you getting that thing for the moment. It's about creating and making sure that we all are helping whatever you choose, and ideally, the things that are most important to our lives, and hopefully building a nation. So I think those are the three things that I say. And even if you can just do that three, I think that's really important, because I only started doing it because I realized that as a people, we don't really talk about money. We don't talk about salaries. We don't talk about money at all usually. And I won't say everybody does it, but it's very clear with Rich that I remember meeting someone who his parents never gave him money. He only gave him stock. And I was like, stock? He's like, yeah. And now, if you're a 6-year-old boy and he had a Microsoft stock for $20, it's not worth $20 right now, let's just say. His parents made a very smart decision for them. So I haven't given my children stock yet, but I definitely was like, whoa, we're not even talking about this. So you have to start talking.
Yeah. And I think this question I just have to ask because it kind of falls off of what you just said. And this question is from Brother Kumiki Bay. He stated, the prophet said that one day you will see $20 on the ground and you won't even bother to pick it up. How do you feel on us investing in metals, whether it's silver, copper, or gold, or anything other than actual cash?
Yeah, I mean, the fact that you're investing in companies is not cash, right? That's just a pure example of it. You could be investing, the sister just mentioned, like insurance, right? Which is essentially putting money away that you get at a later time for the way you retire. So there is something to be said about, it's not really about the dollar, it's about the utilization of the dollar. And that's very, very different. And I think culturally, sometimes we focus on like accumulation of the dollar, but that really, really isn't what we should be doing. It's the wealthy, it's not in their cash book. And there's some people that are wealthy and they don't even have cash. They have property or they have investments, and it might take them a while to get cash. That doesn't mean they can't get it. It just means that's not where their money is sitting. And so that's where if you have a good financial advisor, they'll start to teach you those things of like, hey, did you know you could do this versus this? Have you thought about this versus this? It's a great question to ask them. Like, what are some of the things that you like to, help people like me? Like, what are the ways you think about diversifying my money? And so, again, it's not about exactly the dollar. It should be about the utilization of what it helps you do for you and your family and your nation.
Praise Allah. So we are at the end of our show. And as always, we like to leave our audiences with our last words. So anyone can go first and we'll close out.
Who's going first? I didn't hear you.
Oh, you go first.
Me, I'm number one. Okay, I'm number first. So basically, we're talking about money management, and it's true to understand what money is and history of money. And this is a closing statement, so I can't get into it too much. But gold and silver was the standard at one time. So I do believe it's good to diversify, but I wouldn't go and put all my money in gold and silver right now. But there's nothing wrong with having some. Holding the thought, like we said, holding it in your mind so you can make decisions in your life as they occur. And as you grow and unfold, your life and your actions should grow and unfold as well. What I'm doing today is not what I was doing 10 years ago. So those are kind of my final thoughts right now. Thank you and peace.
I guess I have to go next. I'm going to read a verse if it's okay, my final thoughts, because it made me think about this. Chapter 30, page 39, holy instructions from the prophet, the social duties. It says, when thou considereth thy wants, when thou beholdeth thy imperfections, acknowledge his goodness, O son of humanity, who honored thee with humanity, endowed thee with speech, and placed thee in society to receive and confer reciprocal helps and mutual obligations, protection from injuries, thy enjoyment of the comforts and the pleasures of life. All these thou owest to the assistance of others and couldst not enjoy but in the bands of society. And I think my closing thought is I'm, thankful the sister asked me to speak because we all are learning different things, and it's important to share that, and that's the being reciprocal. And so you will be surprised, I would say, how much information, if you talk about it or ask someone, that they are more than willing to give you an earful of a tip or an idea that can help you in your growth and attaining your wants and needs. People are I find that people can be very open and happy to share that. So I say continue to think about that, but consider that wants.
Praise Allah. And I want to thank everyone for tuning into More Perspective. And as we always leave out, we just want to make sure you know it's all about what you think, how you think, and what you're thinking about. And if you're trying to make a better condition for yourself, then most likely you're going to have to change how the way you think. So as we said before, you want to make sure that you look at the show and change one thing about yourself. If you're really looking for money management, make a list of things that you want to change. Change one thing once a month. Look at your finances and figure out what you want to save and what you want to save for. Don't buy Starbucks. Be careful when you go to Target. Maybe make a list. But it's just those small changes that are going to help you create that condition that you desire. And we hope that you are able to share this information with your friends and family. And once again, if we do this together, not only will we be building ourselves up, we will be building the world up, which ultimately will build a nation. So thank you for tuning in. Tune in next week, Thursday, 7 o'clock, when we go into our next episode, Entrepreneurship. Have a great night and peace and love.
Love you. Peace.